Good afternoon, Coolest Coast. It is time for Coffee on the Coast. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Coffee on the Coast. I'm your host this afternoon, Tina Prigge. Delighted to welcome back to the show Meredith Gadzinski from Manitowoc Public Library. Hi, Meredith. How's everything going today?
Good. How are you doing, Tina?
Yeah, excellent. The sun is shining on the coolest coast, so all is good. And you've got something new to tell us about at the library. Not necessarily the snazzy, high, sparkly things, but a very important thing. Let's talk about microfilm machines. What does that mean?
Well, a microfilm machine reads microfilm, basically. It reads film of resources that have been scanned into microfilm or microfiche that people can access through the library. So it's usually used for historical research. We have microfilm here at the library. We have microfiche as well. And sometimes researchers bring in their own microfiche to look at because they don't have the machines.
Oh, okay. So wait, I'm picking up a couple of things. So microfilm and microfiche, two different things?
Yeah, microfiche they're square. Like, for example, what we have at the library is we have death and birth indexes for Wisconsin. Like, we have the pre-1907 death index on microfiche. And it's this square little film that you pull out the alphabetical letter you're looking for, and you can look, if you're looking to narrow down a death date of a relative, that's a resource you would go to do that, basically.
And so then microfilm, instead of just a square, is it like a whole reel, like a film
Yep,
reel?
it's a film reel. So the resources that we have a lot of newspapers on microfilm dating back to, I think our earliest is 1854 of Manitowoc County newspapers. There's some Newton town records as well on microfilm. We have census records on microfilm. We have necrology records on microfilm. We have lots of resources on microfilm for people to come and do research with. And it's just kind of the machine is used to view the newspapers, because we can't hang on to newspapers from 1854. They would be falling apart by this point, and we don't have the resources to keep them safe, per se.
So is microfilm searchable in some way? Like, how do you find what you're looking for? I know with microfiche, you said, alphabetical.
Yeah, so the names are alphabetical. Microfilm, the way it's loaded on the film, the newspapers are scanned. Like, for instance, even for this year, I'm sending newspapers to be scanned on microfilm.
Oh, so it's ongoing. This isn't just historic stuff.
No, this is like we're preserving for the future, always. So
you guys are the best, actually.
Trying to think ahead. So it's scanned chronologically because the newspapers are made chronologically. So it depends on the microfilm machine if it's searchable. The new machine we have does have the word search function. So what's showing in front of the screen, there's like a box that usually shows up green. When you're moving the film forward, it changes to red. That means that it's not ready or set yet. But once you stop moving the film and the box is green, you can click on word search, which is under the home tab, type in, like, for instance, today I searched for a gentleman who died in 1942. His name was Albert. I searched for Albert on that page to see if his name showed up. And Albert did show up. I didn't actually find what I was looking for today, but I was able to use the word search function, and it worked out really well.
And so that's a feature of the new machines?
Yep. Our other machine doesn't have that feature. That's one of the cool features of the new machine. The new machine also, the picture quality is amazing. Like, the camera our machines, so we got the ScanPro 3500 this year. Our other machine is 15 years old. So the camera is 15 years old. So this one is really nice. And it works really smooth. It's very easy to use. It has this wonderful word search function. So if you don't have a date of what you're looking for, it can speed up picking through a year's worth of papers, basically. And like before they organized the papers the way they do, a lot of obituaries were these single word, single sentence lines mixed in with all the other local briefs. Like in 1901, so and so's family went to visit so and so in Milwaukee, and they'll be there for a month. And then like a one line, so and so passed away, on this date, and that's it. And it's in this tiny little print in this really kind of big paper, and you were literally having to pick through everything. And if you have to do a year's worth of that, that's a lot of time. And this,
Right.
you'll still spend quite a bit of time, but it will make things a little bit easier.
Oh, it's fascinating. It's also fascinating. I'm kind of geeking out on that concept that they would post in the newspaper, right? Like, went to Milwaukee and will be staying there for X amount of time, or hosted a tea party and so attended wearing blah, it was almost
Yep.
like a social page, right?
Yeah, it was definitely a lot more personal things were posted in the paper, more personal things. So yeah, it's just different now. And it's always fun to go back and read, this person's been in Milwaukee for a month and they have now returned and they brought this person with them, or they'll describe parties and they'll describe what people were wearing, and things like that. And yeah. And like they'll list everyone who attended. So like if you had a party, Tina, and your party was in the paper, sometimes they'll list all the people you invited and who came in the paper. And this, I mean, they don't do that anymore, but it's just fun to read that stuff. So
Yeah, what an interesting glimpse of history. Okay, so it sounds like this is like a perfect tool, especially if somebody is doing any kind of genealogy research, for example. Who else might be using these tools? Who is it helping?
local history researchers, like if you want to research buildings, and you're looking for information on that building and articles written about that building, that's helpful. Any kind of local history topic. I mean, they wrote about everything. So anything, and people could, even if they're doing some sort of, like if you're working on some sort of school project on like fashions in the 1920s and you wanted to look through advertisements in the 1920s in the papers, or that would be helpful in that way too. And anyway, it's kind of endless. It all depends on whatever was happening during that time period. There's resources in the newspapers for that.
Yeah, what an awesome resource. So then if a person is using the machine and they find something that they want to, save, it's got the right information. Is there a print function or like a print and save or screen capture or something?
Yep. You can, that green box that I described, you can narrow it down to encompass the area that you want to either print or save. And you can go, it's under the home tab, click on print and it just prints out. Super easy.
That's amazing.
Or you can, it's saved to scan drive. And what happens is then that image gets saved to a folder on the desktop. And then you can then put that image on a USB drive. Or you can open up your email and attach it to an email and email yourself. So there's lots of ways that you can keep what you find, basically.
Okay, so that's amazing. You're not just taking in the information and having to write notes. You can literally print it out or save a digital copy to yourself, and that's fantastic. So if somebody comes in and they want to use the microfilm machines, is there a tutorial, or what do people do? Do they have to reserve the time?
Don't have to reserve the time yet. They're not quite that busy all the time, but you do need to be logged in by a staff member. So go to a service desk and ask to be logged in, and then staff are trained to get you started on the machine. So they'll show you basic functions of the machine. And then there is a handout that has all the little functions beyond the basics. So if you wanted to do something a little more in depth, you could kind of look at what buttons you would need for that, basically. So I'm still learning. We just got the machine in August. I then trained staff on basic functions, after that, and I'm still learning the machine as well. So I don't know everything. But I've used the word search, and honestly, the auto adjust function does pretty much everything you need to do. And it always keeps things in focus, which is really nice. Some machines you have to always be adjusting it, and this one it'll automatically kind of adjust to the scan. So that's really nice. You just press auto adjust, and I'm
That's
just
amazing.
amazed at how clear the words are.
And so a user does not have to be an expert to come in and use it. Library staff can answer questions that you have. Does a user have to handle the film in some way, or how does it read the
Yep.
film?
The film is in boxes, so they would take the film out of the boxes, and it's on reels. I should have grabbed one for an example. I didn't even think about that. No, I don't have any up here.
Tim,
Sorry,
if you're
just
watching,
looking.
bring an example.
There's some in the annex, Tim. So, but anyway, so they would load the film, and staff can show you how to do that. Or there's actually, when you pull out the carriage of the film, and the software should be open by that point, it shows you how to load it. You load the film and then just move it forwards or backwards based on your needs.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really easy. You don't have to be an expert. It's pretty intuitive.
How cool. I think I recall, like, as a child getting a library tour, maybe it was a class tour, and they taught us how to use the Microfiche machines. And I just think everything you're describing is such an incredible advancement from then. It'd be kind of fun to do some research now.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking about it. I've been using Microfiche or microfilm machines for close to probably 21 years. And this machine is so nice compared to what I had to use in my undergrad. Like, I think about the hours and hours I spent in that area of my college library. And now I'm thinking, oh, I wonder what kind of machines they have now and how much easier it would be. And there's so much online as well, more online than used to be. So research has just changed drastically.
But that is an interesting point too that you bring up, that researchers could really benefit from this machine too, digging into some of the older materials.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So besides newspapers, are there other materials that are on microfilm?
Yep, we have census records on microfilm up to 1930. Census records are also available online. And honestly, I would tell people to use the online ones. It's much easier to use, because with census records, you have to know the enumeration district. It's not organized in the way you think they would be organized for research. So it's much easier to go online for that. But we do have them on microfilm if you would prefer that. We also have necrology records, which is basically like lists of obituaries of people in our area and in Wisconsin. We have the Newton Township records for some years are on microfilm. They're in the little mini 16 millimeter film. What else do we have? We have some years of the Milwaukee Journal on microfilm. We have some Lakeshore Chronicle on microfilm. And I think that's most of it, is what we have. So a lot of what gets used are the old historic newspapers. And some of the newspapers are in German.
How interesting.
Yeah. We have 3 papers in German that I can remember for sure. So you need to know not just German today, but German how it was used back when they printed the paper. So that can make research interesting. There was someone today I was helping get on the machine, and he knows German, and he was doing research in one of our German newspapers for their family.
Wow, how fascinating. So cool to know that these resources are available to Manitowoc Public Library patrons. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show and explain this. I really had no idea what to expect when I saw microfilms was on the docket. So this was awesome, Meredith.
Yeah, it's definitely not the most exciting or flashy thing here, but it's important. It's important. And I think it is exciting and flashy. I'm really excited about this machine.
Yeah, hearing you talk about it, just knowing that there is that touchstone, that touch point, to our history, like dating all the way back to the mid 1800s, that's so valuable. And then it's so interesting too to think about how society arranged itself once upon a time, right? Like there's a
Mhm.
lot that can be learned from that and just the insight offered. I want
Yep.
to know who went to certain parties and what they were wearing.
Yeah, and it's hit or miss, like what was in the paper and what wasn't. It really depends on how close you were to Manitowoc proper and how far out you were. So usually, the farther out in the county, the harder they'll send like weekly briefs in, where it's like more once a week, or what's in there isn't the same. And it depended on the paper because there were multiple papers going on at multiple times. And I'm sure because there were German newspapers, some things were just in the German newspapers and not in the English ones, depending on your background as well. So anyway, I still feel like society was just as complicated back in 1854 as it is right now today, because some of the politics at all, like I'll read through when I'm doing research, I'll just read some of the headlines. I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds very similar to what I'm reading today. So it's just interesting.
That'd kind of be a fun game to play, right? To take a headline out of context and say,
Yep.
okay, was this 1854 or 2022?
Yeah, and you'd be surprised at how hard that game would be. So
Yeah. Funny. Cool. Oh, Meredith, thanks so much for telling us about all of this information. I really appreciate it. You've been watching Coffee on the Coast. Our guest today was Meredith Gedzinski of Manitowoc Public Library. We'll see you next time on Coffee on the Coast. Thanks, Meredith.
yep, thank you, Tina.